It's not every day you meet someone like today's guest. Hey guys, I'm Sarah, your host at What's on Your Plate podcast. Welcome back for another amazing episode. Today I'm delighted to share the mic with someone who absolutely needs to be elevated in every precious way she leaves the world better than she found it. Carianne Blain is a surrogate. If you don't know what that means, we're really diving into it in the conversation. But very superficially, while also being anything but surface level, Carianne carries other women's babies through pregnancy when they themselves cannot. I don't know about you, but I can't think of anything else that is more sacrificial or selfless. Let's hear her story. So, we're just gonna really dig right into the conversation then. I'm excited to have you here today. I have Carianne Blain, and I have had many a mom in this space, but as far as I know, never a mom who is a surrogate, which I
Cool.
think is
That's fun.
pretty special. Yeah, I think it's really fun and really special, really unique. And I know that there's a lot of intrigue and probably misconception and confusion. So we're gonna,
Cool.
sort through all that today.
Yeah.
Um, so welcome and thank you for being here.
No, thanks for having me.
So before we get too far ahead of ourselves here, let's, for the listeners, describe what a surrogate is.
Sure. So there's two different types of surrogates. There's a gestational surrogate, which is what I am. So what that means is I'm basically just the carrier. So it's not my own egg, or it's not genetically mine at all. So it's an embryo that's been created before it's put in me, and I'm just kind of the carrier for that. Then there are other types of surrogates where you're using your own egg. So that would be a situation where you're kind of artificially inseminating your own egg, and then you're also carrying that baby for someone else. That in that sort of situation, that's also kind of just basic IVF. But if you're a surrogate, then you're carrying it for somebody else, but using your own egg. That's a less common surrogacy. So most people do use, someone else's embryo. But if it's a situation where maybe the mom's eggs not, they're not able to produce their own embryos, then there's situations where people are surrogates but using their own egg. I think that type of surrogacy kind of complicates the situation a little bit more. It's not as common now.
Well, I could understand why that complicates it. And I didn't had you not explained that, I would have not have realized that difference. Um, because what that would mean essentially is you would be genetically connected to that baby. It would be
Yeah.
your egg, but somebody else's husband's or partner's sperm, right?
Hmm.
Um, and then it would be more or less you giving your baby up for adoption. Is that kind of what that means?
Kind of, yeah. It is called traditional surrogacy, but I've never met anyone that's done that before. And yes, it's an adoption situation, but it's partly that dad's baby
Hmm.
and then partly yours. I mean, uh, there's also situations where you could, if your egg wasn't viable, you could get an egg from someone else. You could use your husband's sperm, create an embryo, and then put it into a surrogate, or, into someone to grow their baby also. But that's so it's it's not always genetically connected to the intended mom and dad either way, but um, you know, lots of different variations of how people become mom and dad, I guess.
Right. It's so interesting to me too. And no matter how it happens, I just feel like people such as yourself are, for one thing, just like miracle workers for these parents. That is such a selfless, such a generous thing to do for somebody else. There's so much that I feel like is unknown about what that means for you as the surrogate. And we'll get into that for sure in the conversation about, what that means for you after you're done carrying baby. But it's just this like epic gift, I feel like this like gift that is so very unique and precious. And I just don't feel like it gets talked about enough.
Well, and I,
Surrogacy. Mhm.
I want
I
to
was
hear
just
you.
going to say, surrogacy, I think in general is not something that we hear a lot about for whatever reasons, whether there's kind of stigmas surrounding it or people just have some deep feelings about it one way or another. But talk to me about why, like, let's clarify it for our listeners, why somebody does choose this path.
I think people, once people get to this option, they've kind of explored a lot of options. I think that sometimes people see surrogacy as just like, and I've heard this before, it's like they don't, it's just like people with money who don't want to be inconvenienced with pregnancy, and that's why they choose surrogacy. I've met a lot of families through this process and through communities with surrogacy, and I have met one of those people, but it's really not common. I think a lot of people who come to this place, um, it's not just people with a lot of money. These people have already gone through such financial struggles trying to even have a baby themselves. Adoption's also an option, surrogacy is an option, but no matter which way you go, or IVF continuously with a lot of failed attempts, they're spending a lot of money to try to have a baby no matter what. And it's I think it's hard to it's a heavy thing to carry for a lot of these people, and it's surrogacy kind of gives them hope because they can have their own, genetically their own baby, but with just the help of someone who's, can go through pregnancy help, with less complications. They've had healthy pregnancies, they've had healthy babies. That is a requirement for a surrogate to, well, and with most agencies, they want to see that you've already gone through this process with safely and the whole way through, because they are kind of putting, that's a, with every surrogacy and every pregnancy, it does cost them, and even every attempt to transfer embryos. So I don't know, all the families I is, besides one family, it's everyone genuinely just wants a kid in kind of any way possible. A lot of these families, at least the two that I've been a surrogate for, they were also exploring adoption. So even genetically, their baby being theirs wasn't the utmost importance to them. They just wanted a family, and they were kind of trying all different options. So,
Right. Well, it makes a lot of sense, especially the way you describe it. And thank you for just clarifying a lot of that. I think what isn't as common in terms of knowledge as to why is there are people who just don't want the inconvenience of pregnancy, which that seems um, hard to understand, I guess, coming, from myself as a mom or you as a mom. I think, that I certainly everybody's entitled to their opinion and stance on that, but let's talk a little bit about the disconnect that happens when that is the case, or even just the disconnection from the experience if it's not because of that. We talked a little bit about that before about just the intended family um, feeling like they're outside of the experience.
I think honestly, with any woman going through motherhood, through pregnancy, through, taking care of their children, I think there's women who carry their baby and still are disconnected, and are mothers and still are
Mhm.
disconnected. I think with finding intended parents, I wanted to find a family who it felt connected, because even if they're not carrying the baby, I wanted them to be connected to the pregnancy and connected to the baby, wholeheartedly. And I think that it just takes that kind of individual. I mean, we've all met probably moms or dads or family where their kids are their kids, but work's more important, or
Mm.
someone they have kids, but someone else takes care of their kids full time pretty much. So that's just a way that some people go about building a family, and they could have carried that baby, but they don't, they're not totally connected. So with finding a family, I wanted to make sure that there was that connection. And honestly, a lot of these families, they so deeply want children that most of them really want to be moms and dads, and so there is like a strong connection. But even during the pregnancy, I wanted to feel um, supported, and I find that support in surrogacies with the intended mom. Just as I think any woman shares that with their partner who they're growing a family with, I kind of share that with the intended mom during the pregnancy. I share, what I'm feeling during the pregnancy. I share all the appointments. That's kind of where I feel the most connection with the mom. And I think that also helps with her build the connection to the baby in the pregnancy, like being able to know what's going on in my body, see the baby move, hear the heartbeat. Those are all things that I hope build connection during the pregnancy. So when we get to the birth and baby coming earthside, that she feels some connection.
Well, that answers another question I had about participation of the intended mom during the pregnancy. And it sounds like, as much as possible, you want her there for things like appointments and along for the journey in general.
Yeah. And I do want, like, I want trust where it's not like, what are you eating, or, like, I don't want it to, I also don't want to feel like, um, overbearing, but I don't feel that at all. I didn't with the first, and I don't with this one too. So yes, they're connected, but they're also not controlling. Like, it's
Mm.
still, my body and my choices
Hmm.
in terms of how I'm taking, but they both trust me, to make those decisions. And I think that's one of the things that is brought up in the interview process with them, with me. It's just, those are things that they want to know about me and how I take care of myself, not during pregnancy even, but just in general. Like, am I a healthy individual? Do I take care of my body and myself? And what am I putting in my body?
Right. Well, I can understand why that would be important to the intended parents for sure. And before we get too far, I have another question I have about that, but I want to clarify the term intended parents and what your title is amongst this. Because I think that it can feel, at least I got the impression in a previous conversation that you and I had, is that it can feel kind of impersonal. I feel like you're the surrogate, and they're the intended parents. And there's like this, um, it's devoid of like names or like emotion, I feel like those titles. But can you help us understand why that is important?
So I think so intended mom and dad are the mom and dad of the baby genetically, and those will be the mom and dad after baby or when baby is born. I mean, they are mom and dad. Currently,
Mhm.
I'm just carrying, but I think for them and for me, like, even when we walk into the hospital, it's like, this is mom and dad, because that's um, I want them to feel that that is their titles, because that is their titles, and it starts from, I mean, baby is a baby right now. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
still holding the baby, but they are the baby's mom and dad.
Mhm.
So intended mom and dad are the intended parents. That's kind of how we refer to them. And then yeah, we refer to me as the surrogate. And I never really know what quite to call the baby, like the surro baby I've heard, or like, if someone says to me, or talking about me carrying a baby, I say, I'm a surrogate. I'm carrying this baby for someone else, but there's not really like a name for the baby that
Mhm.
I'm carrying, if that makes sense.
Right, right.
But it is,
Yes, it just leaves a lot to think about, a lot. And even the term intended, has there ever been, I'm sure there has at some point in time, but it almost seems like there could be a change of mind. Intended
Oh, I see
parents.
what you mean. Yeah, I haven't thought of that. I guess because like they're not mom and dad yet. I mean, they are in my eyes, but I guess baby's not here, so they're not that yet. But yeah, intended is a weird word, and because it's always been referred to as that, I never like really dug apart that word. And also, like you said, you kind of assumed moms are like a mom carries, like that is the word kind of referred to. So why wouldn't I refer to myself as mom while I'm carrying baby? But
Mhm.
the mom role, just so as with adoption or someone who's taken over, like mom and dad can mean a lot of things, but it's who's considered the mom and dad to that baby. It doesn't have
Mhm.
to be connected genetically. It doesn't have to be that they carried the baby. It's just who is mom and dad to that baby. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, but even I think um, like Mother's Day. I come. We just had Mother's Day, and it's like,
Mhm.
do I say Happy Mother's Day to her because she is almost. I mean, she's almost a mother, kind of. But like, when does motherhood start if you're not carrying the baby? You
Yeah.
know. So, but I still said, baby says Happy Mother's Day and to you, and that was like I think just any she is a mom at in my eyes at this point already.
That was a beautiful gesture, and I'm sure it made her smile because there can be some confusion about how to handle those types of days, right? During circumstances like this. But um, you mentioned earlier in the conversation that this is the second time that you've been a surrogate, and this time versus last time looked very different for you in terms of how you came about it and um, the logistics of things that went on and are going on during the different circumstances. Can you just tell us a little bit about how that looked very different before and how it looks now?
Yeah, so the first time was just it was family friends of ours. I mean, I had grown up with her. She was one of my older sister's best friends, and I knew her, um, and I lived in New York at the time. So I found out that they were struggling with infertility with multiple loss. She was diagnosed with something else that would complicate pregnancy. And at that point, I had already had two kids, but I knew that I wanted to wait a little bit to have my third child. So I kind of had this space, and um, I just kind of felt it in me to reach out to her and say, I know that this like seems crazy, but I would be happy to carry your baby if that was something you'd consider. So that's how it started. It was just like a simple, ask. And then we kind of both started looking into what that would really look like. She didn't have many embryos left. Um, at the time, I think she had three embryos left, and she knew she wasn't going to go through the process again of retrieving eggs. So yeah, that's how it started. So we got lawyers. We, went through it. The process is kind of structured as we could, but it was the first time for both of us. So we were kind of learning as we went. And um, then, I was 15 weeks pregnant, and then my husband got a job in another state. So then we had to move, halfway through the pregnancy. And even with all of that, um, it like we knew in our hearts this was the right thing, and we all just kind of worked through all those little obstacles. And then they came here for the birth, and baby's 3 now, and they're in New York. But we have a close relationship still, me and the parents, and me with Charlie, the baby. So like, and I think they with that process, obviously, because of how rewarding that felt, and because of how um, I think I mean, there's nothing better than that feeling of what you've given, and then it's just like a continuous feeling. So after having my third, I considered surrogacy again, and I talked to my husband about it. And he also sees this as kind of a passion of mine too. Like the gift I have to be able to carry babies, it does feel like that to me, even for my own kids. It feels like a gift. It feels like something I was given, that I have good pregnancies. I like being pregnant, and why not give that gift to one other person if I can? So that's what we did. So I started looking into it. I found a surrogacy community. I met a lot of families. There was a lot of stories, a lot of interviews, just a lot of like emotion, because these people are kind of pouring their hearts out to you, asking you for this, you know, thing that's simple but complicated, and it's hard to kind of go through that process. But a lot of people go through an agency. I did not go through an agency. So an agency is a organization that has intended parents and has surrogates, and they help find matches, just as adoption agencies do. They have kind of profiles, and they manage the communication, they manage the medical records, they do a lot of the logistics. I wanted a little bit more of a personal experience where, I've been through it before, so I knew a lot of the logistics and legal stuff, but I wanted to find someone myself and really build a connection, without just like, okay, I think you guys match on paper because you have similar interests. Like, I really wanted to talk to the person, meet the family, learn their background, and then decide. So that's how I found this family. They reached out to me after seeing a post on this surrogacy community, and it kind of started from there.
You
And that
say it so nonchalantly, like it's matter of fact and like something that's just a typical, regular, everyday thing. And it makes me smile listening to you talk about it because I can tell that it's just something like fully on your heart to do.
yeah.
And you can tell. I mean, you can just feel that from the way you describe it. Talk to me a little bit about some of the fears that are associated with either you or from the intended parents when you enter a relationship like this. And I guess what I'm getting at, so the only real knowledge or exposure, even indirectly, that I've ever had to surrogacy outside of meeting you is reading Gabrielle Union's book. I don't know if you know
Mhm.
who she is or anything about her. She's a very famous actress. Um, and she was afraid somebody was going to steal her baby. She had a surrogate. She had a surrogate for reasons similar to what you described, in that she wasn't able to carry on her own. And one of her biggest fears, and I don't know if this is founded in other situations or if there's other fears, I'll let you share on that in a moment, but Gabrielle Union, if you're not familiar with who she is Black. She insisted a white woman carry her baby because she was afraid somebody was going to steal her baby. And it was less likely to happen if she had a
Really?
white surrogate. Yeah,
Because it wouldn't look like
the mom.
the mom.
So that for sure is a fear that I have become aware just by reading her story is true for many moms. But I'd love to hear from your vantage point of what kind of fears are associated with what you are offering.
I, I think, I mean, I'm not someone that fears most anything. Like, my kids say, like, what are you scared of? I'm like, I don't like live in fear of anything. So I don't think about, like, even thinking about worst case scenarios, I just don't get scared easily. I think I've been through scary situations, and, or, you know, I don't know. I don't live like that anymore. So I'm not someone that fears things. So going into situations like this, I don't feel much fear. Even with childbirth, like, or complications that come up, I never really feel, um, I don't feel much fear. I think, if you think of like, okay, what's the worst case scenario? These parents don't want their baby or something. Um, that would be sad to me, but that wouldn't scare me. I mean, not only is there like legal documents, but it wouldn't be like, oh, that baby, now I have to take care of this baby. That's not mine.
Mhm.
There's enough in place that would kind of take out that situation or that scenario. Pregnancy, obviously, there's things that can go wrong in pregnancy, and there's things that can happen to me during pregnancy and during childbirth that I guess could be scary. But every pregnancy, and I really just think to myself that my body knows what it's doing. That it will tell me if there's something wrong. Um, and right in my head just feels like it's in the right place, and so does my body. I think intended parents, and again, like I've talked about how long it takes them to get to this place of surrogacy, what they've been through themselves. I think these intended parents carry a lot of fear because of the loss that they've had, the complications they've had. Most of them have some sort of medical thing where it's made it hard for them to get pregnant, or it's a situation where there's no explanation, which is fearful too, because there's not a reason why they're not able to carry. So in terms of fear, no one's said to me, like, I'm scared you're going to take my baby. We all go through psych evaluations, me, my husband, and both the intended parents by a professional, together and by ourselves. So I don't think, I mean, hopefully a professional would kind of pick out any deep rooted fear like that. And I'm sure that that may cross their mind. But I also think me being a second time surrogate, a lot of people found that more desirable because I've been through it before and they could
Mhm.
see that the process went how it went the first time. Besides
Right.
that, I don't think that they would, if they had those fears, they'd be sharing them with me. Um, so,
Yeah, maybe, maybe not. I don't know. It's a very vulnerable place to be if you
yeah,
did share
definitely.
them, but I could see that being something that crossed people's minds for sure. Um, let's talk a little bit about the toll this takes on just you emotionally and your family. What does it mean for everybody when, and so the kids, you have three children for our listeners who don't know that, and two of the three are old enough to understand to a certain degree that mom has a baby inside, um, and then one day she won't, but that baby isn't going to come home with you.
Yeah.
So I'd love for you to share about just the emotions associated with that and what things and what is put in place to protect you during your recovery from labor and pregnancy, and the recovery for just your family.
Yeah. I think every pregnancy is kind of a sacrifice on the woman during pregnancy. I think it's the way that you view that sacrifice, rather you view it as this is happen this is being, like this is being taken away from me. This is happening to me, like, oh, I don't get to do this. Like, do you see it that way, or do you see it like, this is my body doing something incredible, and there's every sacrifice has, or every miracle kind of has its sacrifice. And that's kind of how I see it. It's like, I don't, even if I'm feeling not great, which I have felt great this pregnancy, um, I would never think to myself, like, oh, like, it stinks I'm feeling this way because of this. Like, I don't see it that way. I don't see it as like a disadvantage of the sacrifices I make. Yes, it is a time commitment. I think I now know what kind of time commitment that is,
Mhm.
from the first time to the second time. The first time that I did this, it was just a gift for these parents, so it wasn't paid. So it was a sacrifice to me and my family that was purely just because I wanted to do this for the family. This time around, it is compensated. So in term, I it it is giving me an opportunity to stay home with my son. And I'm still, I have appointments, I have things I have to do, but I am getting compensated. So it kind of changes a little bit how you think about it.
Mhm.
Um, my family grant has been, I've also met people who said like they weren't a surrogate because their husband didn't like the idea of it. Grant sees this as something that I enjoy to do. It kind of like fills me up. Every pregnancy does. It fills me up. So he knows he's just looking at this as holding off the next time I want to have a baby. Like he's like, all right, good. I don't have to have my fourth baby yet. Like he is really supportive. He never complains. He does all of my injections. I mean, we were like on the side of the road, and he was like in New York coming home from Christmas, and he's like doing these injections, pulling over, making sure my medication's right, whatever. Like he's also not a type to like complain, but he's been very supportive. I think you need your husband to be fully on board. He is the kind of the backbone, because there is, I mean, right now he's out with the kids. I'm talking about surrogacy, but every little bit of the process, he has to be um, there and supportive, just like just like you'd support someone else in the work that they do if you're their partner. My kids, the first surrogacy, my daughter definitely knew what was going on, and she thought the whole process was pretty cool. And I think the fact that they have a relationship with Charlie still is fun to them. They see it as their cousin. They get to visit. They know mom carried her, but they also have a relationship with the parents. This second time around, we, uh, my daughter's very interested in the whole process, start from the beginning. Just they know all the words for everything, where baby grows. They like to read books about it. They're very knowledgeable in pregnancy and how I got pregnant with someone else's baby. But my son, like, I don't know, a couple months in, started being funny about the surrogacy, almost like what you were talking about, like he was fearful. I don't know if
Mhm.
he was fearful that I was going to keep the baby, or if I was somehow not telling the truth about this, because he didn't know the parents. He had never met them. And to him, there was no like connection. So he started to almost get mad at me being pregnant and mad at the baby.
Mhm.
So he went through like this kind of transition. I don't really know what it was fueled by, but now after meeting the parents, and even before that, like he just started to be loving towards my belly, talking to the baby. He was
Mhm.
interested in seeing pictures, um, and now it's just kind of like any other pregnancy for him. Like there hasn't been any ups and downs. So I think it's complicated. I mean, he's 5. It's a complicated idea, and it's your mom. So it's like this person that you see a certain way, and any sacrifice that a mom makes that takes away time or energy to their own kids, I think can sometimes be challenging for children. Like,
Yeah, I would fully agree with that for
right?
sure.
Like even you going to yoga, your kids might not like yoga now because it's like it's taking away mom from you, or it
Hmm.
could be anything. So
Right. It's kind of a side note on all of that, but I think it's also a great lesson in helping kids understand that mom is a whole person outside of being a mom too. And for you, this is work at the moment, right? Something that you're getting paid to do. So um, it's hard for it's hard for us to allow ourselves to lean into those things because then we start feeling guilty as moms and feeling like,
that's
we should skip the yoga or whatever it is. But we can't skip, the pregnancy when when we're
right.
in the midst of it. But I love what you said. Yeah, I love what you touched on a little bit earlier about just the support of Grant, your husband. Um, because despite this baby not being genetically attached to you or will be connected to you, your body is still going through all the emotion and ups and downs and things as if it was a baby that was going to be your own. And just the need for support during those times. So the fact that he is in tune with you, is supportive of what you're doing and helpful, that's amazing. That's phenomenal, actually.
And I have his parents. So they, for the first surrogacy, because they are people that I trust and I trust my kids to be around, I like them to be here during the birth because it's the only people I can really be like, I can be in the birth and not worrying about them. So
Hmm.
the first surrogacy, they came to Indiana and stayed with us leading up to and after the birth. And then again, they're going to be coming like a week before the birth this time to stay with us to make sure that there's support here for our kids and to help with just the logistics around all of that, like feeding me and cleaning my house and all that stuff. So not only do I have his support, but I have his family's support, and my family's also very supportive. They're just not here in Indiana. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's definitely like you kind of. And I remember telling like my family the first time around that I was doing this, and they just couldn't understand why I would do so. Like, why would you go through that trouble for someone else? Like, that's kind of how they saw it.
Hmm.
So you kind of have to see it a different way, like I was saying. But they did not.
Right.
Until I had that baby, and they could see what I had done for that family, and they could see that family kind of whole and as a family, that then it all kind of clicked. So then the second time around, when I told them that I was thinking about it, they were like, well, that's cool. Like their view on it was very different.
Yeah. Well, I mean, talk about a gift that keeps giving, right? I can see how initially people would kind of like raise their eyebrows or kind of cock their head about why, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And, why is that a good idea? But I can also understand the notion of enjoying pregnancy. I too enjoyed my pregnancy. So if you didn't have a terrible experience and you could clearly see how, especially initially, the first relationship that you had during all of this, it's somebody that you knew. So it's like you knew intimately who you were helping, and you got to like see that joy transfer from, your body to the baby. You know what I mean? Like you just got to see it all kind of transpire closer than I think most of the time is true during these situations. So knowing that that is something that you were able to give, it's just beautiful. I don't even know if I have the appropriate words to describe just what a precious gift it is to be able to do that. But I'm sure that also is not without acknowledging the very real. You still go through postpartum
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. And postpartum is very different without a baby.
Mm,
I mean, it's your body. I think producing milk is probably the I've found the best way to release those hormones, because every time you are pumping, you're releasing oxytocin, which is what baby gives you, basically. Um, or that's the hormone that is released when you're feeding baby. So
mm,
without baby there, and I was very intentional, like um, I didn't, when baby was born, I put baby on my belly, not on my chest, because I didn't breastfeed the baby. Like I wanted the first connection with the baby to be with the mom, for the moms,
mm,
for their connection, more importantly, so that the first kind of heartbeat that baby felt and touched was their mom.
mm,
So she, as soon I had baby on my belly while they were cutting the cord and cleaning baby up, and then baby went right to mom. And I think postpartum for me, I didn't really know what to expect. I kind of like was waiting for the worst. Um, I did go through some, it was mostly like anxiety. I didn't really feel sad, but I remember like 2 weeks in, I was like, can I come back to work? Like I wanted something to do, almost to like kind of get my mind just like I didn't know what to do with myself. I had just had a baby, but when you don't have a baby to take care of, postpartum feels very different. I felt sore for a couple weeks. Um, but you know, you're sleeping well, you're eating well, it's very different. And then like 6 weeks in, I started to feel some anxiety, you know, like crying for no reason, worrying about the baby, um, things like that. And
Mhm.
that was, I mean, I also had that postpartum with my own pregnancy. So that's just kind of what I'm prepared for this time is I'm those kind of same feelings. I ended up going on Zoloft after that pregnancy postpartum, to help with those. And then I went off of it once those kind of feelings subsided.
Mhm.
Um, but I think just the continuous, and when I also took, I encapsulated my placenta that time too, to make sure that the nutrients were getting back into my body. I don't know if that made any difference or not, but I did that for the surrogacy.
I understand what that is, but for our listeners, explain to us what encapsulating your placenta means.
So the organ that is attached to the baby, you basically dehydrate it, put it into powder form, and encapsulate it. And I took it as like a vitamin. So
Hmm.
the organ itself has a lot of nutrients, and minerals that are important for your recovery, not only of your body physically but mentally. And it's like something that's, I mean, there is research on it, but um, it's like with any other, you know, vitamin or homeopathic thing. It's not like it's a miracle drug where you take it and you feel better,
Hmm.
but maybe it's just one thing in the, you know, in the whole group of things that kind of helps with your
Right.
physical and mental health postpartum.
And it certainly doesn't hurt anything, right? If it's not, I mean, it's natural, it's been part of you. Um, and if anything, like you said, it's helping with the depletion of what has occurred throughout the
Right.
process of it all. Um, I really just admire the way that you have been so conscientious during um, the surrogacy the first time, and I'm sure it will be true during the birth from the surrogate experience. Just the idea of not bringing baby to your chest, so that the intended mother's heartbeat was the first that they heard outside of the womb. That I feel like is just a different level of consideration and compassion for the intended mom. And I just want to acknowledge you for that. Like that just feels so over the top in terms of like just like a more than what would be expected, I would feel like during these types of circumstances. So I just wanted to like let you know I see that in what you did and what I'm sure you'll do again. And it's a bigger deal than I think a lot of people realize. So that's just amazing.
Well, and I think birth in general is such a sacred kind of experience. And I've had all different kinds of births, but birth is the baby's first experience with
Mhm.
life and coming to. And I do think it affects, um, you know, baby in general. And I just see it, I don't see it as just like the way baby's coming out. I see it as an experience for baby and those parents. I want that experience too. I mean, just as it's an experience for me, but as you know, birth can be really, really difficult,
Mhm.
and birth can also be really, really beautiful. But when I mean, I hope that this birth will be just as beautiful because they've already had such a hard time to get here. And I think until baby is born, they struggle with feeling like it's real and feeling like this is baby, you know, this is their baby and everything's going to be okay.
Mhm.
So it's really that moment I think is really, really like full circle for them. So I just like want to kind of give them that space in that moment to really feel like this is their baby and baby's okay, and they finally have, they have what they've been trying for so long. So
Mhm.
I hope that we have a similar experience this time.
I'm sure you will. And even just your mindset about like not fearing things or worrying about things. I mean, we know that when we are feeling stressed out, that is also something that our babies feel when we're carrying them. And when we're not, right? But certainly when they're living in our bodies, baby feels what mom or surrogate feels.
Yeah.
So I think that even just that, just like the way that you've approached pregnancy, makes for a much better experience, I feel like, in terms of coming earthside.
Life can already be stressful. Um, you know, like everything moving. If there's things in your control in terms of your mindset of of, where you can keep your mindset, that's something you can kind of keep, you can control because everything else is going on and stressful in life.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Um,
Right.
so some of the things that you talked about in a previous conversation and a little bit here is the pumping, you're pumping your milk and not just to dump, right? Like you have part of the way that you even take care of yourself postpartum is to know that baby is getting what baby needs. And to you, that is breast milk. So pumping is not just to release the hormones, but it's also to give baby best possible nutrition. And I'd just love to hear you talk a little bit about that and what other things have been established to make sure that your needs are met also in terms of like how you want baby to be cared for, at least initially after being born.
Yeah, the breast milk, I think, is that's probably the only thing. To me, I'm just like that. My body's making this milk for this baby,
Hmm.
and I want the baby to have that milk.
Hmm.
Um, breast, pumping is a very different experience when baby's not near you. It definitely feels like a task. It's
Hmm.
not that enjoyable for me. But I do think that when I talk about kind of full circle, I think that that's kind of the closure to the pregnancy, and it's kind of the last part of it. And I do think it's important for my body and for baby to get as much of it as possible. Um, I Yeah, and how long that will last for, I don't know. Like how long I think I pumped for like 3 or 4 months postpartum the first time.
Hmm.
That baby, so they chose to formula feed the baby, but my milk was, I did give my milk to a few different other moms, and
Hmm.
all those moms had stories in their own. So that was a cool kind of process, just giving in a different way to other moms. I mean, it was like one was a
Hmm.
NICU baby, one mom just really wanted to breastfeed and couldn't breastfeed. So, like however it happened, her body
Hmm.
stopped producing milk. So this was just a different way of giving that gift because it was like I think I was going through the trouble of pumping, and I wish that the baby had the milk. But if she didn't have the milk, at least it was
Hmm.
for someone else, and there was some sort of connection, and I could hear that story and feel,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think people maybe don't have the understanding of breast milk is not sharing breast milk with babies that are not genetically yours is not an unusual thing or it's not something that is a new development. This is, I mean, if you know anything
Yes.
about people, if you know anything about just history in general, and I won't go too down the rabbit hole of that, but there has been many lactating woman who has nursed several babies at one time during history, maybe none of which were hers. So it's not an unusual thing at all to just have babies who are not genetically yours or even from your body at all to be benefiting from your milk.
And this mom, this intended mom that I'm with now, she's actually looking into induced lactation where
Mm.
she can make her body produce milk herself. So that's also really cool to me, that she's considering that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that will just only connect the baby more with her if she can breastfeed
Yeah,
herself. So,
for sure.
but I think in
Yeah.
general, breastfeeding, just like how pregnancy is to some people, breastfeeding to some people doesn't hold as strong as of an importance as it does to maybe me or you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also, um, it's just a different way of looking at it. And
Mm-hmm.
you kind of have to respect that too if that just doesn't hold as much of an importance to them.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I can understand that, that people have different mindsets about it. There is something as well I recently learned about. I don't know if it's a newer thing or not, but being able to freeze dry your own breast milk so
Yeah,
that it can be powder form and then, put in a bottle and so you're not like having a freezer full of breast milk like many of us have done
yeah. It's
in
expensive.
what's
It's
that?
expensive to freeze dry.
Is it? Yeah, I'm sure.
That's the only downside. So yeah, obviously it's more convenient. It's easier to transport. You don't need to, worry about keeping it frozen or whatever, but it's just, it's an expensive way to handle breast milk, especially if you think about how much you're producing over that many days
Mm.
or
Mm-hmm.
months or whatever. Yeah. And when I say like the importance of breastfeeding, I did, move through this surrogacy or through this pregnancy. That was something I asked right in the beginning was,
Yeah.
is breast milk something you're planning on feeding your baby?
Mm-hmm. Right. I remember you shared that conversation with me that it's really important to make sure that your morals and beliefs are honored during the process of pregnancy and birth and the initial period after baby is earthside because um, even though you aren't genetically uh, tied to this baby, you still share blood with the baby, right? Is that how you would describe it? Like baby is still part of you to a certain
And
degree.
yeah. So
And DNA, you said?
so her DNA will always be in me and mine and hers. And just as
Mm,
this baby, we share, uh, I don't know how that all science works, but I know that we have our DNA and our blood have
hmm.
connected.
Right, right. So it's really important that things that are important to you are honored as well during the process of all of this. And I know for sure, baby benefiting from nutrition created specifically for them is important to you.
Yes. Yeah.
Hmm. Carianne, this has been a wonderful conversation, very enlightening, and I think it's going to answer a lot of questions for our listeners. If you were to share something as like a final thought or what you wanted people to leave this conversation thinking about today, what would it be?
I think just like an open mind about the whole process. And I think with anything, you don't really know the full story. And I think a lot of these intended parents deserve kind of the space to be able to be open about the choice that they've made and not, um, like just keeping an open mind to that you never really know where people have been or what they've gone through. And also same with being a surrogate, that my intentions aren't to just make money or to, this is just the next thing I'm doing. Like maybe this is something that is really a passion of mine and something I really love, and keep an open mind about that. I also think that people have a lot of questions about it, but they're maybe scared to ask or
Mhm.
they don't want to go there. or something, but I think we're all open to questions and sharing more about it and kind of spreading the joys and the everything good that can come out of surrogacy. So
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you for being willing to answer questions here and just share your experiences and just be transparent about a lot of things. It's been really helpful for me, for sure, just understanding more. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners will benefit as well. So thank you for just sharing this space with me today.
cool. Thank you.
People like Carianne help me remember that there are absolutely good people in this world. Sometimes that can be blurred, but knowing that there are people like Carianne, well, it's just incredibly reassuring for my outlook on humanity. Surrogacy is also a great reminder that families are born in many different ways and look very different from home to home. Always the most important thing being that there is love given and love received. Thank you, Carianne, for the beautiful way you are helping families grow. For our listeners, I hope you share this beautiful episode. And not only that, but click the follow or subscribe link to What's on Your Plate podcast. Doing so means everything, actually, and helps you because you'll never miss an episode, and it helps me because you'll never miss an episode. If you're a Spotify listener, leave a comment and let us know what you thought. Apple listeners can leave reviews to share their thoughts. Interacting with this platform in any or all of those ways helps the conversation reach more people and keeps them coming. We'll see you next time.